Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome to episode 24 of my Factorio Post Novice Guide. So, in the last episode, we continued working on, I guess we started working on what will be our main bus on Fulgora. We set up a bunch of recycling that will account for the extra recycling that we need for like a second processing. This is adjustable. Like we could, for instance, say, you know what, this is I have it set up so that these 16 will basically fully produce the 12 items, and then these will produce some of those items, and then some of those items will be recycled for other things that we might need, allowing all of this to go along the same line. So, and then we also set up a train hub, which is obviously a little incomplete. We will work on that, I guess now. So I just need everything to be connected as far as circuitry goes, and then I want to wire everything together as well too on the green network, the green circuit network. Sure. And I also need a RoboPort. Doesn't really matter where we put it, just somewhere that has power. Where is somebody? Sure. Works for me. Connect that to the green network. All right. So we have since run out of scrap in these scrap mining that we were doing over here. I went ahead and tore some of this down off screen because off screen I said I was going to start setting up a rail network. I kind of uncovered a lot of areas, and we have a ton of really beefy scrap around us, but it took me quite a bit of time to actually do this. I came up with this roundabout. I'll show how to build this shortly, but I have these little areas, well, tons of scrap on them, but mining pretty much as much as I could. I have some lightning collectors and filled every little space that I could with accumulators, and that will ensure that we can power all of this for as long as they, well, provide for us. So I actually made two blueprints from this. I made a T-rail and an intersection like this, and I'll go over kind of what I did for that shortly. But I also set up some extra mining down here. Generally, I prefer to show my work, but you know what, in some cases, you know what, we've seen certain things many, many times. But I do want to take this opportunity to kind of shift this, because this was kind of in the way of our baby city block blueprint. So I'm going to cut all of this, and I'm just going to drag it down. We're actually going to drag it probably something like that. And that will make room for our blueprint. This will also allow us, well, now I can actually force stamp some of this down. Let me just check and make sure. Yep. Okay. So in which episode? I think shortly after we got here, I went over some like core concepts of, well, actually, you know what? No. I kind of also want to take this opportunity to expand this a little bit. I don't know. I'm like just randomly placing this. I didn't math this out or anything. Yep, good enough for me. Alright, that's better. So, I mentioned that there are some key, like core concepts that we wanted to go over. So for instance, not being afraid to just ditch a bunch of stuff. But in the case where some things, or in maybe a certain case where everything is backing up, we kind of want to come up with a way of, like if we're not producing anything, we don't want to just be chugging everything down the line into recycling. So what we're going to end up doing is we are going to use the red wire, and we are going to connect all of, like every single bit of storage together. Because I want to track how much we have of each item. And if you wanted to be like less wasteful, you could just, how do I want to, I'm going to attach this to the main line. So make sure that I can see the red line on all the items. It looks like everything here is connected. That is 12 items, basically. I'm going to do the same thing here. So the reason why I want to do this is we want, I don't even know what this was. Oh, leftovers for Holmium. We don't want the scrap recycling to just kind of endlessly dump things, even if we kind of don't really need it. And that should bring up, wait a minute, why does that not? Oh. All right, somebody should be connected at some point. No? All right, we will just manually connect this one to this one then. Because this one is not the right one. That's better. Yeah, okay, now we have everything being tracked. Okay, so because I don't want like everything to endlessly be scrapped down here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a decider combinator. And we are going to connect the main network, which we have connected there, and connect it to the input. Because I want to track every single item. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a condition for every single one of those items. And they're all going to be OR conditions. We can just use this as a list and start going through. So batteries, iron plates, gears, concrete, red circuits, copper, copper wire, steel, solid fuel, ice, plastic, stone, what was next? Green circuits, I probably missed something. Stone brick. Holmium ore. Blue circuits I did not get, and LDS. So I kind of want to go through and manually manipulate these because each of these has a different stack size. So I want to make sure that, for instance, I don't just blanket say one number because the stone is different from, let's say, the batteries or the circuits. I can definitely remove these as well. That was kind of a temporary thing. Did I limit anything else? I did. Okay, I don't think I limited anything else. Okay, so I want to take each of these items and we're going to determine the stack or I guess the quantity of each of... Oh no, 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 no. Well, I mean, that would have been fine, I suppose. Okay, so anything with 200 can hold 9,600. 9,600 per chest. So that includes the red circuits, that includes the green circuits, and then some things like the steel or, oh, and the copper wire is also 200. The steel, the plastic, the plates, these are all stacking in 100. Stone brick stacks to 100. Holmium ore, I believe, stacks to 50. So you kind of get the idea. This is 50, this is 50, this is 100. And the blue circuits are 100, LDS is 50. So different things stack different ways, and we're just going to kind of account for how much can one container hold, or how much can all the containers hold. So I kind of, you know, we might be a little bit more lenient whenever it comes to the Holmium ore, because that's much harder to come by, and we're draining the crap out of that. We need lots and lots of that. And again, this is all starter-based stuff. This is all going to be torn down at some point, but I'm just going over concepts that we're going to end up using for the end of our scrap line. So I want to make sure that I have enough of everything that I need and in quantities that I'm okay with. So I'm going to do some map view. That way I can move around a bit easier. So let's just say that, and we can use this as a guideline too. So let's say that, let's go with like 2,400 or 24,000. So if we don't have 24,000 batteries, so like if this was 10K, for instance, if we had this set to 10K, if one of these items is over our desired amount, send out the check mark signal. So these are all going to be greater than. Yes, for now they are all lit up. Well, mostly. Okay, so we're not going to use 10K for this one. We're going to use, let's say, we're going to go a little bit less than, let's say, 3 containers worth. So this is going to be, you know, close to, like, that's 4,800 because there's 48 stacks per chest. So that's 4,800 times 3. It's close enough to 1,500. We'll just drop that back some. Just make sure that we leave some room for opening. So everything that stacks to 100 is going to be 14K. This one stacks to 200, so we're going to just do 24K. $24, 14K. And then anything that is stacks to 50, we can, I don't know, probably just do 6K. Yes, 14L. This was 100, so that's 14. I mean, we can basically never have enough of this. And we do have 6 chests worth of this, so let's just do 12K. This one also stacks to 100, so let's do 14K. And this was stacks of 50, let's do 6K. So this is going to output a check mark if we are missing basically anything that we want. Now, I kind of wish that I could have each of these send out their own check mark, but we would need multiple combinators for that. I'm not really that worried about it. So we're going to connect this to one of the belt segments and say enable if check mark is greater than 0. Ideally, I could have said, for instance, okay, if each of these had their own check mark, I could have said, you know what, maybe only enable if we're missing, if we have like 3 check marks or 2 check marks. So if things were to get backed up to the point where we have more than what we need of everything, and to be honest, we didn't even have to limit these per like 3 chests. We could have been a little bit more picky and said something like we don't need 14,000 concrete. We could have said limit this to 5. So if you want, you can be a little bit more picky with it to allow things to quote unquote back up a little bit more. And as things start going, I mean, you will end up finding that holmium ore is probably one of the things that gets depleted the fastest. Holmium ore, batteries, maybe some of the circuits or copper wire. It really, at the end of the day, it depends on how much you use like on this planet. So we will, for instance, have kind of like a bot mall / upcycler area over here, and then a recycling everything else that we don't want over here, just a kind of a dumping ground. So for instance, if we wanted to build our own, I don't know, let's say substations or all the electric power poles, like we definitely have all of the components being lined up here, and what will end up being extra storage from our bus line, then we could, for instance, build all those over here, maybe do some upcycling. Yeah, let's get you a buddy. I also said that I was going to go through and do the edges with all of these. I did not. I did, however, do that on these just to kind of cover. Where's the other one that did? I skirted the outside just to make sure to get as much of that lightning as possible. Haven't done that here. I'm going to kind of poke away at a lot of this, setting up all of these mining areas. And to be clear, we don't need all of this area, but I am going to be limiting. I'm going to be limiting each of these stations to 2 trains. So that means we will have potentially one here and then another one, like, I don't know, hanging out somewhere waiting to take it over. I don't need like a stacker or anything because I'm perfectly fine with having one here and then one, I don't know, let's say backed up here waiting to go in. It's not messing with anything. It's not interfering with the main line, so I'm good with it. And I will continue to do a lot of that in between episodes. So each episode, hopefully each episode that you see, actually now that I look at it, I might even back this up. Oh, I can't back it up because of these. Well, I mean, I could have them, I could back this up some. I might do that. We'll see. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the core concepts is if we don't need this to just be funneling into the recyclers, then don't do it. And that's how we're going to prevent this from happening. Sure, make it look a little bit better. Okay, so we have a few things to get into. So first off, I want to show off the roundabout. So I did make some blueprints out of the stuff that I said I was going to make blueprints out of. But I don't like just doing it. I do prefer to show my work. So this is going to be me kind of showing my work. So this is how you end up with a roundabout for elevated rails. You copy this and add it to a blueprint. are going to snap this to grid, and this is a 32 by 32, having 0, 0, and manually moving the flag where it needs to be, which actually that was perfect. And the way that we determine whether or not that was perfect is place it and try to rotate it as long as it doesn't move visually, and you can be in between your robo ports, then you are good. So then we also want to kind of have this line up with a straight rail, which I did show off earlier or in the last episode. So I'm going to cut this back, well, not that much. Cut this back a little bit so that we have something to line up with, and we are just going to rotate this until we get a nice tight turn. And then line that up. Now, if you saw my episodes where, like in the last guide where we did build some train blueprints, you know that I prefer chain rails on these, on the roundabout, and the forward position is always preferable. So anything coming into the roundabout will have a chain signal. That includes this line here. I am going to not add those just yet though, and the reason why is because it's a lot easier to build the blueprint without them. So I'm going to copy this and hit H to flip it, and then I can just line each of these up. Flip it again. I used V that time. I am intentionally making these little legs. And the reason for that is these straight rails don't quite line up, so it's nice to have a little, we'll just call this like a buffer. I could probably actually... Yeah, that still lined up to be the same size as the... Yeah, the one that I was making. Okay, so chain signals on the forward section of the roundabout. Anything coming in to the roundabout is going to have a chain. And just to kind of break it up, anything leaving is going to have a regular rail signal. That's it. That is our roundabout. I also did make a T intersection. And you can see this little break, so I definitely want to get rid of those to make sure that this is nice and flush. I tried to replicate that whenever I initially made these elevated blueprints, or the elevated blueprints that I use, and I could not replicate that to save my life, but that was kind of it. Let's say, I don't know, I don't need to replicate it again, but anyways, and this is the T-rail intersection that I made. So I have blueprints for both of those, and I was going to try to fiddle with something that was just kind of like a generic intersection. It was not working out for me, because if you know me, you know that I like to have blueprints that are rotatable, so I can just kind of place them for the most part. Obviously, this does not work with our straight rails, and this is probably the biggest manual pain in the butt that I've had so far, is whenever I decide to make one of these, I kind of have to cut back on the straight rail, and like, let's say something like this, and then I can just place it. And then I always double check to make sure that it's actually connected, or that it doesn't have some weird like overlap, like if this were to come straight out. And we didn't get enough of it. Okay, still didn't replicate it, whatever. I suppose, now that I'm thinking about it, you know what, let's just do this. I wonder if I were to force stamp this in, because it's getting rid of the other rails, if this would just automatically make it line up, had it actually placed the full blueprint, it would have. All right, well, there you go. I guess you can just force stamp it down. All right, so we have a lot of stuff to get into, and I am 25 minutes into this. Oh my goodness. All right. We need some water. So we are going to start the process here. Sorry, my bots. I'm going to put some water over here. We don't need a lot, so the smaller the space that I can use, the better. My poor bots. Okay, another thing that I'm going to do is, because of this whole situation here, like having buildings outlining the edge will certainly help with that. But I'm going to end up moving this section bringing in materials and probably all of our storage. I'm going to shift that over here somewhere. The reason why I haven't done it yet is because I'd rather have it in a more central location, and I just don't know where that's going to be. I would rather not have to move it again once I move it, so I want to make sure that I can put it somewhere that it will have access in this direction and access in this direction. I guess ideally it would maybe be somewhere over here. That way it had access in this direction, more or less safety and access in this direction, and then maybe some up here, but we're going to have all of this taken care of before we ever move this, so I'm not too concerned. As a matter of fact, I probably could just go ahead and add all of this power storage up here, but we need to get through this. So we want to be able to pull things off. And we specifically want ice, because we need the water. And this is how we're going to do it. This is the only place that we need ice. So another thing that we could do is we could take all of this and let's say do this again. Ice is cheap. I'm really, like, we don't really need that much of it. We're not going to have too many ice problems, so I'm not going to do this, but I just kind of wanted to show, like, you know, if we did have a situation where we wanted to collect more and we knew this ahead of time, then we would have it set up like that. Again, I'm not too worried about it. We have a lot of things to be pulling off the lines here, so I kind of don't have the, I don't really have the space to be doing stuff like that. Anyways, another thing to note is this is going to be a lot more, let's say, cluttered than what I've done in the past. So on Novice, I have these nice little, you know, they fit within the city blocks. They're all, like, for the most part, all flush within them. I do have some situations where we kind of had to invade, like here, had to invade like this section of the city block to make something for, in this case, the gates. But for the most part, things are contained within the city block. We are literally just going to be squeezing in whatever we can, wherever we can. This is, you know, Fulgora is very space intensive, so this is not necessarily the place to be making big, beautiful big, beautiful structures, but we do also want to kind of use everything that we can. So I am going to kind of try to leave some room. That's about the only, let's say, quote unquote, wasted space that we're going to have. I might even measure this out with, let's say I'm going to leave 2 accumulator spots, just if we wanted to fill the rest with accumulators. So we need water. We don't actually need that much water. So for the entire factory here on Volcanus, to get us as close to 5 per second of the science as possible, we only need 4 chemical plants. But you also always want to make sure that you have left room to expand. So I'm going to basically double what we need. I love this music. This reminds me of... Funny enough, this music reminds me of... if you've played Super Mario RPG, this reminds me of the final... I guess the factory. If you don't know what I mean, then you should check out the factory theme for Super Mario RPG. Has very much that kind of vibe to it. Anyways, I considered actually adding these to the blueprint for my city block, but ultimately I was like, nah, I'm not too concerned, because then we would have had to work within, like, say this area. I would have had to not have these here. These would have had to been up here. It just felt more constraining, but I think maybe wherever I can, I might add them. And then just have, I don't know, let's maybe make other areas more specific on where, really. I'm so over that. That is such a pain. And then we will need some over here too. Oh, the lines lined up just in the way. Hey, one actually connected. Oh, it connected to this one over here. Haha, didn't even line up with the big electric power poles. Okay, so that's ice. And, or sorry, water. And water is going to have its own... Ouch. So we're still going to be leaving a gap here. So water is just going to come up through here. We don't need water to go all the way, but we need water for more than just a couple of things. So, for instance, water we need for heavy oil to light oil. We also need water potentially for concrete or reinforced concrete if we need it. I don't think that we will need sulfur for too much, or sulfuric acid, but in case we wanted to try to make extra batteries, you know, we do have that option. What else? We need it for holmium ore, and obviously we need the holmium ore for a lot of different, we need it for making holmium solution. And I think that is it. That's most of what we need it for. The heavy oil, the holmium solution, and maybe some other things, but I don't know. We'll see when we get there. So that's going to cover ice. That's going to cover water. I'm actually going to take all this and copy it. I should have... Nope. Let's remove the filters. So now I can get rid of this, and I have a blueprint now to make sure the belts are facing in the same direction that I can just stamp down, and good to go. Okay, so what do we need next? Next we need... there's probably a couple of things that we want to get over here. One is going to be holmium solution. And the other is, like, we could technically utilize a lot of this space. I don't know. We will see. No way. You've got to be kidding me. Really? They put... Is that another one over there? No, it's just an item or a thing on the ground. Wow. I don't think that I've ever really seen this before. That is an oil... That is oil right in the middle. Good job. Okay, so we need some holmium solution. To get the Holmium solution, we need stone, Holmium ore, and hey, look, water. Thankfully. Now, I'm not placing these in any particular place. Well, let's just assume that maybe we're going to have some, I don't know, liquids over here and some solids over here. We are going to have some stuff coming out. This is a lot of space. Like, using this amount of space for a bus is kind of rough, but it is what it is. So we're going to filter this one for Holmium ore. And we're going to filter this one for stone. Yeah, we're going to be a lot more generic in how we set these up. I do not quite yet know how we want to set these up, but we need a chemical plant. Let's see. So how many did we have over here? We had a bunch over here. So we have 10 per second over here. So that's 70, that's 110. Assuming that you have, the Holmium ore to fulfill it, which definitely don't over here in the starter section, but this needed 80 per second. These three over here needed 4 per second each. That's not that bad. And this needed, I put like a single productivity module in here because the accumulators, we don't have any being made up here yet. We're probably going to add a couple bot mall items just to try to get some more crafted that way we don't have to rely as much on novice supplying them. I think I added a couple of other things. I was just like, let's just see if I can get a couple of these things here so I don't have to rely on novice as much, because setting these up was a pain, especially on the islands. Every single one of the islands I had to remove a bunch of scrap, a bunch of piles of stuff, and that ended up making my inventory fill up pretty fast. Anyways, moving along, let's just make some accumulators. These were bringing in iron plate and batteries. Let's also add some quality to these. Because all of these, as they start upgrading quality, those will go directly into replacing the regular ones here to give us as much storage capacity as we can get. So for now, we're gonna just let's do 6. Even numbers line up really good for this. I'm pretty sure I do want to do a second one, so maybe we can drop this down. Just make it super tight. Let's see. Something like this. Nope. And then that will allow water to come in through here. Nice. Sure, why not? Okay, and that is how this will be set up. We can also, just to be on the safe side, and like the only reason I'm doing this, doubling it up, is because I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. And that is where our Holmium will be. Holmium solution, I should say. Assuming... you know what, let's see. Alright, that works. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. We do not have enough room to squeeze that in, or do we? If I back all of this up... Okay, I like that a lot better. Are these all connected? They are not. Wait, that was water. Okay, so that's water, and this guy needed water. Oh, so close. Holmium. Not a big deal. Okay, so that is going to cover our stone, our holmium, and our water. And in the next episode, we will do light oil. We will have light oil coming in next to the holmium. I'm not sure how long it'll be before we turn this on and get some trains going, but I do, like I said, I want to try to get as much of this set up before we turn it on, because once we turn it on, we're going to be limited by basically the amount that these things need to fully saturate. And they probably won't even make it to that point, because there will be obstructions in the way from everything backing up. So the more that we can get set up, the better. And we will try to tackle about as much of that as we can. We're going to do light oil. What else do we need? We need light oil. So we have the holmium solution. We need holmium plate. We need... I'm not going to put heavy oil on the bus. We need heavy oil for electrolyte, and we need it for the light oil here, but we have tons of access to heavy oil. It's not a big deal to just pull it from the ocean. Good to go. So we need some more stone for this guy, holmium solution. So that one's going to be easy. Light oil is going to be easy. Plastic we will have. Copper plate we will have once we turn it on. So we need holmium plate. We'll probably do holmium plate next. Holmium plate, we will put that on the bus and give it its own dedicated section. The only thing that we really need it for the bus line is going to be these two, but we will be pulling off to make some some EM plants and collecting for future stuff. And maybe at the end we can just use those to collect for these guys. Oh, wait a minute. That was another thing that I did. I turned all of my tech off, all of my research off, because I wanted to make sure that I had the rail supports. Now we have the option to make the mech armor. So I guess maybe in the next episode, that's the first thing we're going to do there. Get some quality going, roboports. Batteries are nice, but I'm not too worried about them right now. I want the lightning collector. I want some bot speed. We'll just queue up that for a bit. Okay, so that is going to be it for me for this episode. I will see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.